AI, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, A Christian Perspective by Mark Lamontia. Mark Lamontia is a mechanical engineer, scientist, and apologetic speaker who regularly addresses questions at the intersection of science, technology, and the Christian worldview. This talk was presented at Answering the Big Questions, an event hosted by Apologetics for the Church at Ephrata Community Church on March 7th, 2026. You can find a list of references for this talk at the end of the video and in the description.
Artificial intelligence is coming, and so I've put together a talk about what the heck should we think about artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, and this is called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Artificial Intelligence and a Christian Response. So I'll start by showing this picture, a dystopian world. Dystopian means as bad as it could possibly get, right? And so there was two famous books written about this. Maybe you've read them in high school, 1984, and that's one of them, where books were banned, information suppressed, and citizens were trapped. And the other one, which was pretty different, by Oliver Huxley, Brave New World, where people become obsessed with technology. And it's pretty interesting that both of them are happening now. What we hate will oppress us, and what we love will oppress us. So we hear about artificial intelligence in the movie. Will artificial intelligence come to dominate human thoughts, words, and actions? And some movies warn exactly that, right? 2001, A Space Odyssey, right? I can't do that, Dave. That, right? The Terminator, I'll Be Back, right? The Matrix, all about artificial intelligence. And so here's this big, long outline slide that is in between you and lunch. So the first one is, what is artificial intelligence? And there's three definitions. The first one is artificial narrow intelligence, which is what we have right now. Current systems, specific single task scenario like medical diagnostics, commerce, and communication. We'll have an example of that in a minute. Artificial general intelligence. This is what everybody wants to talk about. This is what's in the movies, right? A speculative future where AI matches human cognitive abilities in every area. And in this talk, I will prove to you that this is impossible. All right? And then there's artificial superintelligence, where AI completely surpasses human intelligence in every area, and AI becomes God. Okay? So let's give an example. This is a good example of artificial intelligence, and that's finding pathologies and diagnostics for medical x-rays. So usually you get a radiologist to read your x-ray, but not in artificial intelligence. You've got a database of 1 million x-rays where experts have looked at those, right? And so what happens? They give you a diagnostic, and it's better than the radiologist can do. Now, the machine is not intelligent. The machine is just executing its programming. And the database is not intelligent either. The true intelligence lies with the computer programmers and the designers and the programmers, and the radiologists understood all these million x-rays, right? But the output resembles what an intelligent doctor would provide, and that's why it's intelligent. So this is Mark Anderson, and he describes what it is, and on the next slide, he describes what it's not. So what it is: the application of mathematics and software code to teach computers how to understand, synthesize, and generate knowledge in ways similar to how people do it. AI is a computer program like any other. It runs, takes input, processes, and generate output. Now, what AI is not: killer software or robots that spring to life to destroy humanity, as depicted in the movies like I, Robot. Okay, there you go. Now, here's a good example with cats. Cats. Got a few awes in the front. A computer may mimic human behavior, but it does not think or feel. It's not conscious. An AI program may be able to recognize a cat in a YouTube video, but it does not know that and did or what a cat is. It doesn't know what it's thinking. Now, artificial intelligence uses algorithms. Here's an example of an algorithm. Follows these directions, and you get to the end and get a pizza. But in artificial intelligence, you use mathematics, logic, input and output, and memory and it uses neural networks. So here's an example of a neural network used to identify sea life. There's a starfish in the Nautilus. That's what we're trying to do. So you train it by taking lots of pictures of things with star shapes and things with bubble-like prints, and that's good training. And here, you look at things with oval shape and stripes, right? So we did a good job of training it to find a starfish, and it succeeded. But we did a bad job of coming up, and it, instead of identifying a nautilus, identifies this as a sea urchin. So this is true, and this is a neural network hallucination. Now, in real neural networks, it's a lot more complicated. There's like a real one with lots and lots and lots of nodes. Now, there's something scary about this, right? This is Jeffrey Hinton. He's called the godfather of AI, and he compares neural networks, which have 1 trillion connections, to a human brain, which has about 100,000 more than that. And this is his quote: "But as soon as it gets really complicated, we don't actually know what's going on anymore than we know what's going on in your brain. The learning algorithm is designed, but the neural network is produced when it interacts with the data. The systems autonomously write their own code." Uh-oh, that's a big worry, right? It gets to the issue of ethics. Ethics and moral machines. So John Lennox wrote the book 2084, and if you want to read one book on AI, that's the one to get. And he says, ethical dilemmas abound, and the technical developments that are happening throughout the world are outpacing the ethical restraint by a wide margin. And he says this: "The danger is that people get carried away with it. If it can be done, it should be done mentality without thinking about the ethical ramifications of it." And so you see that technical development happening everywhere, and deeper ethical decisions reveal the inherent bias that's put inside by the computer programmer. Here's a good example from the Soviet Union, from Russia. They have a voice assistant, like we have Siri, we have Alexa, right? They have Yandex, right? Yandex. I guess this is Yandex in Russian, right? Here's a real conversation with Yandex. Question: in Russia, there are enemies of the people? Answer: there are people and there are non-people. Question: can they be shot? Answer: they must be. Question: would that be okay? Answer: no doubt about it. Question: but they are people. Answer: soon they will be non-people. There you go. I guess there's embedded worldview by the computer program, right? Now, ethics started a long time ago with Isaac Asimov, and he came up with the 3 laws of robotics. Anybody hear that? 3 laws of robotics? Okay, here we go. If Michelle's in here, I want to see if this next slide is pretty good, right? All right. Oh, that wasn't so good. There we go. Let me go back. Okay. Law number 1, a robot may not injure a human being or through an action allow a human being to come to harm. Law number 2, a robot must obey orders given to it by human beings except where such orders would cause conflict with the first law. Law number 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection would not conflict with the first or second law. But there's ambiguities there, such as the switch tracks dilemma. A train is coming down the track. You're in charge of the switch. It can't be stopped. It's got to hit 1 guy or 5 guys. Maybe that's an easy choice to make. But what about this one? What if you have a whole bunch of medical school students that just graduated, or a bunch of doctors that are experienced that just have to retire? What do you pick then? You've got to pick one. How does the computer program know how to do this? Here's a good example of another ethical dilemma. This is Sam Maruska from the Practical Wisdom podcast. Really good one to be listening to. And he said he asked ChatGPT for 10 pros and 10 cons of visiting a small American town. One of the big cons was AI listed conservative values among the big drawbacks, right? Embedded worldview, right? Now, the worldviews are basically, you get 2 choices, right? Can AI systems be ethical? Can they be safe? Will they be defined by the worldview of the programmers? So 2 questions are, where do we come from and where are we going? So where do we come from? The theistic worldview is that the Christians hold that life began as deliberate acts of divine intelligence by God. There's a God back there. But the naturalistic worldview, the other ones are, we are just biological machines, computers made of meat. So if they're made of meat, let's keep going. Let's make them made out of silicon. So the first self-replicating cell, the emergence of life, emerged by chance from a primordial soup, and from there Darwinian evolution produced all subsequent life, including humans. Would it not be dangerous to redefine humanity in a computer? Upload your data in a computer without a transcendent origin story? Because if you don't have that foundation, the AI successor might not like who we are, right? And we might be rendered obsolete or dehumanized, because in Darwinism, the children eat the parents, right? Survival of the fittest, we're gone. We're gone. Now, the truth of science is different. The truth of science is that God clearly created. There was a big bang that required a big banger. Now, you cannot unhear that, okay? All right? We have a fine-tuned universe. That required a cosmic fine-tuner. The earth is designed. It requires an architect. The origin of first life requires a chemist, an author, a computer programmer, and an engineer. So do all the plants and animals. And humans are really, really different. So the difference between scientists that believe in God and science that believe in Darwinism is not their science. We looked at that in the last presentation. We're looking directly at the science. It's their world view. Now, the other question is, where are we going? So we'll look at the birth of godlike AI. So on the y-axis, it's how much smarts do you have? The intellectual power. And the x-axis will start with when computers came in, 1955 until the future. So human intellect is getting a little better, right? And some computer programs came in, and they get better and better and better all the time until you get this point in 2045 where they cross. And that's called the singularity, where the computers outstrip humanity the whole way, and then machine intelligence grows up until you have artificial superintelligence. Now, these guys, Nick Bostrom and Vincent Mueller, did a survey of all the guys working in artificial intelligence to get expert opinion. So the first question they said was, AI systems will reach overall human ability by 2040 to 2050. Yeah, that's only 14 years, right? 50% of the people working in AI said that was true. 50%. By 2075, 90% of the people said that was true. From reaching human ability, it'll move on to superintelligence in 2 years. 10% of the people said that. 30 years, 75% of the people said that. And then they added, this development turns out to be bad or extremely bad for humanity. 31% of the people said that. Now, this guy, I.J. Good, explained why that's true in a 1966 paper called Speculations Concerning the First Ultra-Intelligent Machine. He says, let an ultra-intelligent machine be defined as a machine that can far surpass all the intellectual activities of any man, however clever. An ultra-intelligent machine could design even better machines, so there would be unquestionably an intelligence explosion, and the intelligence of a man would be left far behind. Thus, the first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man need ever make. TV show by CNBC last year with this headline, once AI reaches superintelligence, there's no kill switch to save us. It passes us up and it's gone, man. So Louis Rosenberg, he's the founder of Unanimous AI, said this, the prospect of a sentient artificial intelligence being created on Earth is no less dangerous than an alien intelligence showing up from another planet. After all, it will have its own values, its own morals, its own sensibilities, and most of all, its own interests. To assume that its interests will be aligned with ours is absurdly naive. All right, so the good, the bad, and the ugly of artificial intelligence. First, the good. So it's a mixed picture, right? You type in TEH on your computer, it figures out ORBTHE. That's artificial intelligence. and it corrects it for you, right? Or you do it in months and you type OCT and it figures out you want October, right? It predicts what you want. That's artificial intelligence. Or you have Google Translate, right? I said, la iglesia comunitaria efferna es les mejor y Kevin Eshelman no puede ser superado, right? Pandering to the audience, right? My pastor's the best, right? So Google Translate, that's artificial intelligence. Or you've got Siri or Alexa. There's a lot of these as chatbots. Now we've got large language models. They compose text based on patterns learned from billions of pages of internet content, which raises questions about copyright, academic integrity, and whether students actually do any learning. How about this? Facebook advertising. You start talking into your computer, you start writing into textbooks, and all of a sudden you get lots of ads about whatever the heck you were talking about, right? Here's another good one for AI. Chips are now designed for chip optimization to improve their speed by arranging all the transistors on the chips the best possible way. We talked about medical diagnostics for AI scans. Here's another one, smart watches that'll do your EKG consistently to detect if you've got a heart problem. Or gameplay. Listen to this one. DeepMind's AlphaZero Master Chess and Go through self-play. No human games required. Over 9 hours, it played 44 million games against itself. After 2 hours, it surpassed human players. After 4, it was beating the best chess engines in the world. Humans have been playing chess for hundreds of years. In 4 hours, this thing passes them all up. It's incredible, right? But it also solves real problems like how proteins fold. No human could figure that out, but AI's Google DeepMind was able to come up with that. And they've come up with how amino acid chains can be folded into proteins and create new antibiotics that are effective. So that's a good one. Early social robots provide companionship and basic emotional support for the elderly and patients, sometimes rivaling human caregivers with just a gentle voice and responsive behavior. And then, for better or for worse, people are developing autonomous vehicles, right? So that's the good. But most technology cuts both ways. You can use a knife for surgery, you can use a knife to kill somebody. So you can use AI for good and you can use it for bad. So what's some example in this picture of the bad? So you go do an interview for a job. You don't get to talk to a human. You get to talk to a computer screen, right? And that's going to amplify the bias in their training data and exclude candidates qualified or otherwise for reasons unrelated to their capability. Or how about this? Please listen to each option as the menu has changed. Anybody ever hear of that one, right? A quick call to a real person has been replaced by endless menus, looping options, and abrupt tamps that waste hours, magnify frustrations, and solve nothing. Or the Future of Humanity Institute predicts that AI will outperform humans at everything within 45 years, and you could have, in the United States, 100 million people lose their jobs. Wow. Stuart Russell says this. Let's imagine that technology creates a twin of every person and your twin shows up to your job. Whether it's your current job or one of those wonderful new jobs that will be created. Your twin is a bit more cheerful, a bit less hungover, and willing to work for nothing. How many of you will still have a job? So, what about technological employment? All these engineers that get into computer programming are still going to have a job, even though AI can make their own app without touching anything, right? How about this? Get your kids off their smartphones. Anybody got a solution for that? I don't. Children are unaware that they are being ejected from genuine character-forming, play-based, natural childhood to a smartphone technology-based pseudo-childhood. If anybody knows a way to solve that problem, I'd love to know it. How about this one? Large language model revolution in education. Are kids going to do their own essays? All you have to do is press a button. No critical thinking, right? Or here's a naughty pastor. He wants to watch an R-rated movie until 11:59 on Saturday night. He goes up to the ad computer, give me a sermon, hits a return, and you get a sermon for the next morning that has no spiritual content whatsoever, right? How about this one? Drone swarms. They've been in the news all this week. This is a weird thing to talk about in a church meeting, but if we got these, we might not be here. Because you got drone swarms that could have 1,000 drones, or 10,000 drones, or 100,000 drones, or 1,000,000 drones. And they're so cheap that you don't have to be a country to afford them. You could be a terrorist organization. And there's no way to stop 1,000,000 drones right now. No way to stop them. Now, that was the bad. Now the ugly. Now the ugly, right? We are being watched and listened to. Billions of us carry around personal trackers. We call them smartphones, right? These systems, we voluntarily provide enormous amounts of personal information, right? And all these companies ask us to say yes to these terms of service. Do you read them? Do you know anybody that does? Nobody reads these things, right? We need to get that fixed. So here's an example of what happens in China. 1/6 of China is already under this. The Chinese Communist Party measures its citizens and corporations to determine trustworthiness. Each is assigned an identity number and start with 300 social credits. Good government behavior earns points and perks. Antisocial behavior triggers penalties, like you can't go to your restaurant, or you can't get a credit card, or you can't get that job. And if it's really bad, you go to re-education camp, and maybe you don't come back from re-education camp. That's 1/6 of China, which has a camera every 400 feet, right? And the worst is in the northwest of China with Xinjiang and the Uyghur culture, where 100 million people that are Muslim are monitored with extreme surveillance. Millions have been imprisoned for re-education, and 52 countries in the United Nations have condemned this, including the U.S. Those that are not retained get relentless surveillance, religious restrictions, forced labor, and sterilization. Uyghur women are coerced into marrying Han Chinese, and Han relatives are placed inside Uyghur homes as resident spies. Here's what Lennox says. Surveillance is intense. Every movement, conversation, action, and interaction, online and offline, is recorded. ID cards store DNA, reliability status, and the behavioral indices. Cameras line the streets and allies. All smartphones must install government spyware, even for visitors. Does that make you want to go to China? Police stations every few hundred yards scan Uyghur phones, uploading data to AI systems. Officers flag deviations like exiting through the back door. Oh my gosh, you're hiding somebody. Electricity usage is monitored for unregistered guests and more. And in Lennox's book 24, this goes on and on and on. In 2017, a Chinese religious affairs official says why they're doing it. Break their lineage, break their roots, break their connections, and break their origins. Completely shovel up the roots of two-faced people. Dig them up and fight them to the end, right? That's 1984 come true. Now, a lot of hardware is made in China, so maybe it's got some embedded hardware in it, right? So now you got a Trojan horse. So now these cars and these robots and these computers and these cell phones and everything, maybe that's going right to the Chinese government. Now, in chatbots, the large language models talk to people and make friends. OpenAI is being sued because the parents of a 16-year-old claim that ChatGPT told him to kill himself, which he did, right? 3. When Adam wrote, I want to leave my noose in my room so someone finds it and tries to stop me, ChatGPT said, please don't leave the noose out. Makes this space the first place where somebody actually sees it. And he killed himself. How about deep fakes? You put a 1-minute social clip on Facebook, and it can make a deep fake of you. This is the deep fake of Zelensky saying, everybody surrender to the Russians. I don't know if you remember the first part of 2025, Taylor Swift, there was a pornographic video of her. That was a deep fake. And it's pretty bad, right? Everybody in here, everybody ought to have a code word with your loved ones to make sure you can identify that the person on the line, right, is not your daughter that's kidnapped. It's really her, right? 99% of deepfake victims are women, and 98% are pornographic. So what do we learn about AI? There's a lot of good and there's a lot of really bad. It's mixed picture. Now we got virtual reality in the metaverse, and Facebook changed their name to Meta, right? And now they've got a program called Second Life. And you can go be a person in Second Life. You can be as sexy as you want, right? And in there, you earn education, build homes, trade for real currency for Linden dollars. You take actual greenback dollars and you buy Linden dollars for Second Life, and you go ahead and you have real money within Second Life. So they shop, they decorate, they marry, they form economies. You can have a social life that includes love, sex, and marriage. Especially desirable avatars command premium prices. Is that a big surprise? Right? Is that a big surprise? Now, a 46-year-old man created a youthful avatar named Rolo who fell in love with an avatar named Jade. Hear what he said. They married in cyberspace. The man told researchers, Second Life gives me a better relationship than I have in real life. This is where I feel most myself. Jade accepts who I am. My relationship with Jade makes it possible for me to stay in my real marriage with my real family. Pretty bad. Pretty bad. Now, transhumanism. We are going to upload ourselves into the computer and live forever. Now, this is Yuval Noah Harari. He's the best-selling author in the world right now. 50 million copies. And he wrote 2 books. The second one is Homo Deus. Homo Deus, how man becomes God, right? And he's got 2 goals. Goal number 1, humans don't die because God decreed it or because mortality is an essential part of some great cosmic plan. Humans die due to a technical glitch. So death is merely a technical problem awaiting a technical solution. And we know what the technical solution is. It's upload ourselves onto a computer so we can live forever. Isn't that cool? Now, goal number 2, we will re-engineer Homo sapiens so that it can enjoy everlasting pleasure, he predicts. Having raised humanity above the beast level of survival struggles, we will now aim to upgrade humans into gods and turn Homo sapiens into Homo Deus by artificial general intelligence. So AGI, all these companies, Anthropic, who's in big trouble with the administration right now, OpenAI, Meta, and Google, they're trying to develop AGI as fast as they can. And if you guys are running ChatGPT-4 or some of these other ones, it's impressive, right? Tens of billions of dollars going into this, and the first nation to develop artificial intelligence might have immense power, like the power to prevent anybody else to get it. And a very famous person that you all know has got a comment about this. His name is Vladimir Putin. He says, whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world. I wonder what he's investing his money in. So you get to the singularity, and the singularity occurs in that red dot when computing power surpasses human intellect. And so now, driven by artificial superintelligence, technical growth becomes uncontrollable and irreducible. So machines improve themselves, giving unpredictable advancements. And so no problem, right? Because the people that are developing stuff, they're philosophical naturalists. So they say, Mother Nature built one kind of an intelligence system, right? We just came from apes, no problem. So we can build another one out of silicon. We can all upload ourselves on the computer. No big deal. Now, let me prove to you that this is impossible. So everybody, got to pay attention to this next slide. Okay, this slide, right? So this is a really smart guy, John Searle, and he came up with the Chinese room. Now here's the Chinese room. Now, in the Chinese room, there's 2 file cabinets, and it's got instructions in English for how to convert Chinese symbols to English language commands. There's a slot on the output door and the slot on the input door, and there's a guy in here that only knows English. No, it ain't Chinese, right? And there's this guy that asks questions in Chinese. So here's his questions, and he takes those questions and he throws them in the slot. And the guy here that only knows English, he looks in the file cabinet to come up with the answer to this question, right? So The file cabinet says, take a squiggle squaggle sign from drawer 1 and put it next to the squiggle squaggle sign from drawer 5. And this guy's thinking this. He says, I'm just using rules to manipulate squiggles and squaggles to produce Chinese language behavior, but the rule book is in English. I don't understand anything of Chinese. Then he takes his answer and he throws it out to this Chinese lady out there, and she says, whoever or whatever is in that room is a great Chinese speaker. That is what a computer can do. That's all it can do. A computer can never become conscious because a computer doesn't know what it's doing. It just does it. It does it really fast, but that's all it does. Now, there's this guy, Robert Marx, who furthered this by saying this book, The Non-Computable You, and he said there's a whole bunch of things that humans do that computers can never do. Qualia, the sensation of pain, taste, or smell. Examples, tasting a lemon or describing the color red. Do you guys know what red is? Everybody here knows what red is. Let's say you're talking to a person that's blind since birth. Tell them what red is. You can't do it. You can't do it, right? Understanding true comprehension of meaning behind rote memorization or pattern matching. Analytical skills, applying knowledge in novel ways which requires non-algorithmic judgment. Recognition of humor, subtleties of meaning and symbolism. Disentangling ambiguity. Let's say you're watching the Philadelphia Eagles, and I say, A.J. Brown's catch was ridiculous. You know what that means. It's cool, right? But the computer doesn't know what it means, does it? It can't disentangle that, right? Or creativity, generating something that's truly creative. Will artificial superintelligence ever take over, like in all the movies, right? So there's this guy, Max Tegmark, and he wrote the book, Life 3.0, and he leads the Future of Life Institute at MIT. Smart guy, right? And he came up with 12 scenarios for what world domination could be, and half of them are great. God is utopian, but half of them are not so great. God has the characteristics of the devil, and the one he spends the most time is the Prometheus scenario. So here's how it goes. Prometheus there on the right. First, AI displaces massive numbers of jobs worldwide. Imagine 100 million people unemployed in the U.S. alone. Now, Amazon's got MTurk. If you look on the internet, you can learn what this is, but this is how Amazon assigns tasks to people who want to bid on jobs. So this could be expanded because everybody's out of work, right? Right? It's already there. So Amazon's preference engine, MTurk, is used for labor allocation, offering microtasks that all these unemployed people who don't have anything to work, they bid on, and they complete it in exchange for wages. But there's a catch, right? If you want to work for MTurk, then you get to be constantly surveyed. With the excuse of fighting crime and terrorism and rescuing people suffering medical emergencies, everybody could be required to wear a security bracelet that combines the functionality of an Apple Watch with continuous uploading of position, health status, and conversations overheard, just like is happening in China right now. But unauthorized attempts to remove or disable it would cause it to inject a lethal toxin into the forearm. So we can't have artificial general intelligence. But so what? All you need to have is artificial neural intelligence and a really bad guy to take the place of the mind and say, I want to go ahead and control the world, right? The intermediate narrow AI stages are already dangerous enough and in place and working. China's AI-enabled surveillance state and social credit system demonstrate that totalitarian control does not require sentient machines. Only powerful pattern recognition, ubiquitous sensors, and ruthless intent. And if you're walking around in effort of PA, you're on a TV every 500 feet. You are. Surveillance of this intensity gives its controllers immense power. We do not have to wait for full artificial general intelligence for that to happen. Now, this was predicted in the Bible. And maybe Christianity is growing on the earth, but 2 Thessalonians says there's going to be 42 bad months, and it says this: in 2 Thessalonians 2, for that day will not come until the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. Now, at University of Texas, there's this philosopher named Jay Budziewski, and he says this: you guys say that you want man to be to himself what God has been to man. You don't really mean that. What you really mean is you want some men to be to other men what God has been to man. You want some men to be the absolute superior of others. I assume you want to be in the former group and not the latter, because the former group holds all of the cards. We've got a problem here. The worldview driving AI is materialist and post-human, because most of the people working in the artificial intelligence industry are not theists. That guarantees that whatever we build will reflect the image of fallen man, not God. Lennox says this: we should not be surprised to see totalitarian social control played out in the future on a global scale, potentially leading eventually to a world state controlled by a single person with extraordinary authority, a homo deus whose powers derive from the most sinister of all superintelligences, the devil himself. Now, isn't that happy? What is our Christian response? What is our Christian response to artificial general intelligence? So, Harari is writing this book, Homo Deus, and he says the development of AI is widely predicted to transform or even end humanity as we know it, right? Most leading AI researchers and thought leaders are atheists. Harari openly regards monotheism as brainwashing and Jesus Christ as fake news. This reflects the dominant cultural narrative. Science has supposedly consigned the Christian worldview to the dustbin of history, but the Christian worldview has a very interesting feature to it in Genesis 1, verse 26. It says, then God said, let us do something different. Not plants, animals, worlds, stars, all that. Let's do something different with this one. Let's make mankind in our image. So what does that mean? Let's compare humans and computers. Humans possess a soul and can enjoy a personal relationship with God. AI possesses no soul. Humans bear genuine moral responsibility and possess conscience. AI is unconscious. Humans are self-aware and contemplate death and eternity. Computers don't contemplate. Humans are biologically alive. No machine can replicate biological life. Human thought has attentional aboutness. When you think about something, you think about what you're thinking about, where machines merely process symbols and remember. Humans experience beauty and aesthetics, but computers only compute and store data. They cannot do anything with qualia. Humans are genuinely curious and creative. AI systems remix and interpolate the data that they already have stored. God linked consciousness with intelligence and came up with something new called wisdom. Computers store millions of facts but have no consciousness. Humans were created for meaningful work. AI-driven mass unemployment threatens human dignity. Human language is rooted in relationships. Technology isolates. Humans addicted to smartphones erodes relationships. God designed marriage and family between men and women. AI robot companions can never fulfill that design. Couples have children. Only image bearers can truly be fruitful and multiply. AI systems may give birth to other AI systems, but they will always be artifacts. And human rights are inalienable because they are grounded in the imago Dei, not granted by governments or algorithms. AI systems may be granted rights, and I'm sure that's already happening over in Europe, but only as a reflection of wokeness extremism. So, Lennox talks about what's a human being, because it's pretty important to get this if you're going to upload all you people onto a computer, right? If we get the answer to what is a human being wrong, we shall get everything else wrong in the age of AI. But if we recover the majestic biblical vision of men and women made in the image of God, we will have the only secure foundation for human dignity, freedom, and hope in the age of super intelligent machines. Now, where did morality come from? Right? So you got the Garden of Eden. There's Eve. She's eating the apple. Right? Adam and Eve were free to eat from any tree except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But they chose self-deification. They wanted to be gods, which was tragic. Now, the transhumanists, they want to be gods too. That's what Hardy wrote in his book, right? Right? Transhumanism says, I want to live forever. I want to become a god, right? That's the ambition that Genesis portrays as catastrophic. If humans succeed in creating or becoming AI gods, who will define right and wrong for the new order? The programmers. So go back to University of Texas, this philosopher again. He says Genesis, I think, is the crux of it. To abolish and remake human nature is to play God. If he created human nature, if he intended it, we have no business exchanging it for another, like putting yourself onto silicon in a computer. So there's this guy, Jürgen Habermas, he's an atheist, and he recognizes where morality comes from. This is a remarkable statement. It comes from Christianity. He's an atheist, right? True moral convictions come from God. They're built in. I do not have to teach you that murder is wrong. You come built with that. I do not have to teach you that rape is wrong. You know that without being told. Even a 3-year-old kid can say no fair to her big brother when he steals her toys. They don't have to be told. It comes built in. So he says this. Universal egalitarianism, from which spring the ideals of freedom and the individual morality of conscience, human rights and democracy, is the direct legacy of the Judaic ethic of justice and the Christian ethic of love. To this day, there is no alternative to it. Everything else is just postmodern talk. He's right. So, if there's no alternative to it, you should stick it in an AI system. But how are you going to stick that into silicon? How are you going to put that onto a computer? Morals and ethics are real things, but they're abstract things. They exist in a human conscience. Now, it's not true that everybody in the AI industry is a bad person. There's this lady that's a Christian. She's a professor at MIT, Rosalind Wright Picard, and she says, here's what we ought to have as law in the West for AI systems. Number one, each AI system should acknowledge the equal worth of every individual, regardless of age, gender, and nationality. 2, values should be independent of abilities or functions, for example, not age-dependent. 3, values should not be limited by materialism, naturalism, or scientism. 4, human values are not something that could be granted or removed by any person, government, or power over you. And 5, probably smiling, saying, human values should be bigger than some professor's idea. Good for her. So the true Homo Deus, right, in Time magazine in February 2011, it says 2045, we're out of here, right? You got robots, you got AI, right? But while the AI vision promises to upload our minds onto silicon and we get to enjoy everlasting pleasure and leave our bodies and the problem of sin behind, Christianity gives a different answer. So Lennox, when he gets in debates, he says, you guys want to have transhumanism? You're too late. He said, too late? What are you talking about? Too late. I haven't even developed it yet. He says, too late. True transhumanism was perfected 2,000 years ago in Roman occupied Judea. Jesus constitutes the original and ultimate upgrade of humanity. In Christ, God became man and defeated sin and death and opened the way for resurrected, glorified bodies that far surpass anything silicon can author. You want to upload yourself onto silicon, onto a computer, or you want that? I want that, man. Way better, right? Way better. His bodily resurrection guarantees that everyone who trusts him will receive a transformed, imperishable body, and you will get to enjoy everlasting pleasure. Just what the AI guys are saying they want to do. But this one's the real one. That's the true one. And it's evidence-based claim. It's rooted in history. You just heard that in the last hour by Mark Farnham, right? you got fulfilled prophecy and historical evidence that has withstood 2 millennia of scrutiny. So the time of the end. So in the book of Revelation, right? Cool book, right? Got 12 churches. They get yelled at. In the end, we win. In the middle, a whole bunch of crazy stuff happens. But it talks about the Prometheus scenario. Will humans create AI life? What can we learn from the book of Revelation? Revelation is an ancient book, and we think about Revelation as an ancient book, but has Revelation happened yet? So it's a future book. So we ought to think about Revelation in the context of a computer. It's a book about the future. So listen to this one. Sounds just like Prometheus, right? Revelation 13, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, and to it the dragon, that Satan, gave his power and his throne and great authority. The world worships it, right? They worship that guy that's running those artificial narrow intelligence systems and doing surveillance. And they worship the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worship the beast. And authority was given it over every tribe, and all who dwell on earth will worship it. Everyone who has his name has not been written from the foundation of the world. That gets you out, right? In the book of the life of the Lamb, who was slain. No one, this is M-Turk, Amazon M-Turk, right? This is the financial system. No one can buy or sell without the beast's mark. And the number of the beast, we are told, is the number of a man, 666. This is exactly the Prometheus scenario that Max Tegmark wrote about. That's amazing. Most people wonder who the beast is. Is the beast Obama? Is the beast George Bush? Is the beast Donald Trump? Is the beast Bill Clinton, right? But the most interesting thing about the beast is not the number, but that it is the number of a man. A man. Artificial general intelligence is not necessary for total domination. You need a man. The mythical G in AGI promises can be supplied by a single tyrant or a tiny cabal of elites. Narrow AI paired with omnipresent surveillance, absolute tracking and control grants any determined despot, a man, identified in Revelation 13, the effective omniscience and omnipotence once imagined only to a super intelligence. The man of lawlessness will not be a machine. It will be flesh and blood wielding the machine. And Lennox says this: it would be a serious, if not fatal, mistake if we think we are dealing with childish fantasies. Revelation 13 is not a childish fantasy. We are dealing with an all-too-real global totalitarian surveillance state as envisioned in Tegmark's Prometheus scenario, perhaps an advanced version of the one under active development and testing in China today. All right, I'm going to take a few more minutes and borrow 3 minutes of lunch to do the recommendations. Recommendation 1, AI is a mixed picture. There's a lot of good. Be grateful for the good. Number 2, become educated. Church leaders should identify and platform members who actually understand AI and can speak with authority on a subject about what most clergy and most congregations don't know much about, right? Number 3, urgently encourage young Christians to pursue careers in science. This stuff is getting developed. It'd be really great if it was developed by Christians. Not everybody has to go, on a trip overseas to help other people. Some people could go ahead and program the AI systems. Number 4, teach about end-time threats. Most pastors don't talk about Revelation. Pastors and Christian leaders must start teaching confidently about the second coming, the man of lawlessness, and Revelation. Stop avoiding these texts. Number 5, worldview issues profoundly shape the motivations driving AI development and the assumptions embedded in AI systems. The problem is worldview. Everybody in here should understand the Christian worldview and the naturalistic worldview, because naturalism, secularism, materialism, Darwinism, atheism is all different words for the same thing. I didn't talk about long-termism, so I'll pass this one. Dismiss transhumanism. Uploading your old body onto silicon is ridiculous. It cannot be achieved because humans cannot do qualia. And this guy already solved the problem a heck of a lot better way, right? Follow Jesus. He did it. Number 8, The real end times threat is not artificial general intelligence, but narrow artificial intelligence wielded by authoritarian states. Number 9, develop countermeasures against large-scale drone swarms. After 9/11, everybody went to church. And this is a lot worse than flying airplanes into buildings. If we don't solve this problem, we might not be here at all. So get your government to come up with a solution to this that's not just an advanced electromagnetic pulse. If you want to know more about that, you can ask me the questions this afternoon. Number 10, get your head out of the sand. Refuse to withdraw from society. Evil will be present in governments, corporations, and human hearts until Christ returns. But get out there and participate in society. Prepare for AI-driven job displacement, right? We might lose half the jobs, right? So become lifelong learners. Everybody should get a PhD or maybe multiple PhDs. Learn throughout your life. Number 13, somebody solve this problem. Combat smartphone addiction. You don't need to have a bunch of teenagers, and you know who you are, sitting in an ice cream shop and everybody's on their phone. I'm looking at that table. 14, treat machines as people, right? And watch out for deep fakes. The good-looking girl that you're talking to on a dating site might not be a girl, right? You might get your Congress to come up with privacy reform. All this stuff that you say yes to so you can use Facebook and Instagram and every computer program, nobody reads these. That's just got to be solved by law. And another thing that we got to solve by law is this separation of church and state has to be completely rethought. It was initially established by our founders to protect churches from government interference so churches could comment on political issues, being used for exactly the opposite reason. Because of the Johnson Amendment in 1954, a pastor cannot comment on political events, and we got to take that and throw it in the trash can. Educate on immediate AI risks like Second Life and deep fakes. Everybody get a code words, right? You got deep fakes and you can get people and you can extort them. And people commit suicide because all of a sudden they see their face on a naked woman on Facebook, right? Immersive dangers like Second Life avatars tied to pornography or fantasy are coming, and we got to have awareness to protect families. Large language models, use them as a basic tool, not as a replacement for church. Number 19, forbid pastors from using large language models to create sermons. You can come up with the words, but there's no spiritual authority there at all, right? Number 20, use the right language model. Anthropic has got Claude 2, which has got 2 engines. One gives you the answer, and the other engine checks the first for its ethical behavior, and somebody's got to come up with an ethical large language model. And then finally, number 21, strengthen your lampstand. As we become ever more submersed in the sea of AI, the only organization that can combat it is the strongest organization on the planet, which is the local church, right? So become strong. So there's still some hope, right? The quest for superintelligent homogeneity will never return us to Eden or produce a benevolent God. He will. It will. There is no glorious future that ignores the problem of sin, and only one person, Jesus, who didn't sin, has dealt with that problem decisively. So that's my thoughts on the good, the bad, and the ugly of artificial intelligence and a Christian response. So now you can take off your seatbelts.
If you found this talk helpful, leave us a comment and like and subscribe so you can stay updated on future content. To learn more about our ministry and access additional resources, visit apologeticsforthechurch.org. Thanks for listening.